So hi everybody, I'm Roxy Monroe with KidLit TV. We're at TLA in Austin today, and we are excited to have Todd Parr with us of Little Brown. He's done a series of books starting on the Feelings book. He's an author and an illustrator. So tell us about your most recent book and what we're looking at, the Don't Worry book.
It's the Don't Worry book. It's out in June, and it comes about from somebody who was a chronic worrier all their life. So I thought, and I know kids worry, so it was like, why don't you write a book about worrying, since that's what you do so well? So I did this to help kids not worry so much.
Now you both write and illustrate the books. What comes first? Do you do a storyboard and get the images and then write to it, or do you write it and then do the work?
Usually I do both at the same time. I come up with the subject, I start writing words. I always think of the artwork. It's such an important part of what I do. It's the unpredictability. How could I say that in the way that the audience wouldn't expect? So it's really the art that's the most important thing. That text is the thing I have the hardest problem with. So that comes last, and it goes through multiple changes.
You know, I'm a writer illustrator, and the same thing, because we're visual thinkers.
Yes, and I have dyslexia, so there's a problem with that element in there. And it's not my strength, and I used to apologize about, you're not a writer, Todd, but I tell stories with the art, so I'm good with not being a writer.
So now this is for what ages? And you also do board books, or your work gets...
Board books, around 3 to 6, 4 to 8 years old. You know, people ask, like, what age group do you write? Well, I say 4 to 8, and adults, because sometimes adults, just a few words, simple messages is more powerful than a lot of messages. And I've heard that from adults that have read the Goodbye book that said they were actually able to sleep one night after losing their husband because it was so powerful. So I'm really happy that you know, I can say that, because adults sometimes just need a message. So.
Well, there's that old adage that I didn't have time to write a short letter, E.B. White said, so I wrote a long one. I mean, writing a few words is hard.
It is hard, and I used to feel like I had to, and then I finally just said, that's not what you do, Todd. Just own it and embrace it and go with it.
So do you do computer work, or do you do on the computer?
I started with marker and paper, and then I was painting some of the pictures, and then I decided I love the computer. I love being able to undo what I do quickly, and then built a whole platform on it. I have my own font, the Parr font, my own color base, and it's really, you know, in the beginning, there were very few people using a draw tablet and a computer, and now it's much more prevalent.
So that leads me into your background. Did you go to art school?
No, I did not. I got an F in art class in high school. My teacher said it probably wasn't in my best interest to pursue art.
Boy, she made a mistake.
Yeah, I get asked a lot, like, what does your art teacher think now? And I think he had passed away long before he knew much about me. But I think if I did have the opportunity to talk to him, I would say, you know, if you could have just found something positive in what I was doing, because I didn't have any confidence. And as a teacher, I look up to you. And if you say something good, I feel really good. If you say something negative, then I'm like, you're right. I am no good. So if you just could have found something about my work to say, Todd, that's nice what you're doing. Even if it was, Todd, you draw nice circles, or Todd, you choose bright
red,
colors.
Red is a good color for you to have chosen. I mean,
anything.
So I know what you mean, because your first authority figures have a very powerful influence on you. And as a guy who writes about feelings, I mean, you must be particularly sensitive to that.
Yeah, and if you're lacking in self-confidence, you look up to people, and their word is golden. You don't think there's any other word. You just grab onto what somebody says because you admire them, and I've admired all my teachers.
So now, so you didn't have to do a lot of research for these books. I mean, you didn't have to go to like places. By the way, and that reminds me, segues into something else. Didn't you used to do some TV work?
I had a TV show called Todd World. It was on for several years. Working on another one now. But to answer your research, there is not a lot of research, but a lot of it comes from my upbringing. Like, I had to repeat second grade because I couldn't read to the level that I was at. And some kids, when they found out about it, they made fun of me. I never forgot that. So as I got older, I wrote, "It's okay to be different." I wanted kids to know some of us are good at some things and not so good at others, but we can try our best and we can learn. So a lot of my books are really written on my own experiences when I was younger.
Wow, so you have like really recall of that, and as I say, sensitive. Sounds like you were bullied a tiny bit.
I was. I did not fit in. There was just something different about me. I wanted to wear different clothes than everyone else. I just knew there was another world out there for me. But I didn't have books like these when I was younger, and I often wonder, the closest thing I had was Dr. Seuss and Go Dog Go, Green Eggs and Ham. Those were my go-to books. But I wondered if I had had a book saying it's okay to be different back then, would I have felt more confident? And I think I would have, because I would have saw myself in that book.
Yes, but maybe you would have gotten so comfortable that you wouldn't have done these books,
Exactly.
You gotta suffer.
I always say if I had to go through everything that I went through, and it's called life, we all go through stuff, then it's made me who I am today, and I would not change that for anything. Despite all of the bad that's happened, I'm happy with things today.
Oh, that's wonderful. Really, really touching. And I think that you must strike a chord in children. Do you do school visits?
I do a ton of school visits, and for me, they're an engaging time with kids. I don't make them sit there and be quiet and listen. It's more of bring them into the story, talk about what I'm doing. I bring pictures of my dogs. I show them how to make a book. I just think that reading should be about engaging and not be quiet, listen, and do not talk or move. I want kids to feel like they're part of the process. And so it works for me. I'm able to deliver my books as if I'm in a stand-up comedy, and they respond really well. So,
oh, it must be great. And again, your sweet spot is maybe K to third grade or older?
I get paired a lot. I just was in New York last week. I did nursery school, then I did pre-K, K, first grade, second grade. I switch it up based on, the age. I talk, it's very playful and young for the younger kids. But I have board books, and most all my books are in board books. So those are for very young. And then the same messages as it gets older. I talk a little bit more in depth.
Wow, that's really cool. By the way, you said you were in New York. I understand that you're kind of a friend of KidLit TV.
I am. I feel like I was there in the very beginning, and I don't know if it was the beginning, but I feel like it was because I had just met them, and I had a wonderful experience. And I thought, how cool is something like this out there? I didn't know there was, and I'm like, I'm really happy that KidLit exists.
So are we.
Authors have benefited from KidLit.
And now we're hoping that librarians will, because there's so much. So did you do a reading or an interview with Rocco Stano?
Yes, and we talked about several of my books, I think, at least 3. But he was wonderful to sit and chat to. It's easy when you're with somebody like you. You can just open up about anything. So we could go on for hours.
Well, we could. But speaking of our current situation, have you had anything really exciting going on here at TLA? Have you had signings? Are you speaking?
I'm on a panel regarding feelings. That's later today. I'll be doing a signing afterwards. One other interview and KidLit. That's it. And then I'm out of here this afternoon, back home.
And you told me you live on the West Coast?
Berkeley, California.
Where all the other intellectuals live.
Or Planet Todd World, as I tell kids. It's very close.
One other quick question. If you could meet any illustrator or writer that influenced you at some point in your life, dead or alive, who would that be and why?
Dr. Seuss.
No, when you said that, I'm like, I can see it.
Fascinated with that. I didn't even see it until later in years, and I was, thinking about that, and I thought, I had no idea the influence that those books had. I mean, I knew I loved them. I knew it was a time with my grandma that was very special that I always have with me, but I did not realize the impact that his few words and simple art had on my style. It didn't enter my mind until probably 10 years.
I can see it.
This.
You can see it.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Well, we stand on the shoulders of giants, right?
Yep.
Well, okay, so we're going to say a quick goodbye from TLA, and thank you so much for a wonderful interview.
Thank you. The end. Love, Todd.